This is a store-bought avocado. This is a Sleepy Lizard avocado. We grow these giants here in our grove at Sleepy Lizard Avocado Farm. Most of you are familiar with this type of avocado. This is what you see in the supermarket, the restaurant. You see the ads in the Super Bowl, right? It says right here, Aguacate de Mexico. These avocados are delicious. They're loved by everyone, and they are perfect for everyday use. But every now and then, you encounter situations in life that require giant avocados. In 2015, I walked away from a 22-year career with one of the world's largest corporations to become a farmer. That decision took huge avocados. Like many people at that time, and even more people now, I got sick of that grind. I was getting tired of that corporate world. I was away on business trips all the time. I wasn't getting a chance to participate in my son's life. I wanted desperately to get out. I wanted a different lifestyle, but it was such a good job, it was very difficult to walk away from. Here I stand 6 years later, Thanksgiving Day 2021, and I am so grateful that I made that big avocado move. You see, the big avocado move is oftentimes scary. We want to stick with what we know, right? This is what we see in the supermarket every day. This is what they serve at the Mexican restaurant downtown, right? We don't want to try this unknown. This is risky. What if it doesn't work? What if I don't like it? In my case, people told me I was crazy. They said, Tom, stick with what you know. Stick with what's usual. Stick with what you see in the supermarket all the time. You got your benefits. You got your pay. You got your retirement program. You don't even know what that big avocado tastes like. You don't know if you're going to like it, if you're going to hate it, if you're going to succeed, if you're going to fail. They encourage the little avocado play. But I wanted to make the big avocado play. And I know a lot of you do too. So let me tell you a little story. Let me try to inspire you to make that big avocado move. In 1993, I landed a great job with a big corporation. I was a freshly minted computer programmer and went to work developing software. You land a job in 1993 as a computer programmer, that's it. You are done. You are set for life. But for some reason, I got it into my head that I wanted to be a salesman. And I became obsessed with selling the software that I was currently developing. I became fascinated with the salesmen. I'd see them walking around our corporate office hosting customers. They'd be in these beautiful suits. They had their hair all nice. I'd hear these stories about golf trips and fancy dinners. But the thing that attracted me the most was these guys were living on the edge. If they closed business, they got paid. If they didn't close business, they got fired. It struck me more like sports than business. It was a competition, it was a game, and I wanted to play. I had to play. But there was one problem. I was a 23-year-old techie guy with a computer science degree. And that is not the typical profile that gets hired into sales. And the situation was even worse in the company I work for because we sold software to hospitals. And at the time, there might have been about 1,500 hospitals in the whole United States. And a typical software contract is $30, $40, $50, $60 million. But it also lasts 15 to 20 years. So you don't get a lot of opportunities to win business. And if you get an opportunity and don't win the business, you don't get another crack at that opportunity for 15 years. And the people that ran this company knew that. So they were very, very choosy about who they put into the sales positions. To me, earning a spot as a salesman in this company was the same as getting a spot as a starter on an NBA team. Eventually, I figured out who the guy in charge of the program that hires new salesmen are, and I set up a meeting to go talk to him. I sit down to meet the guy. He pulls out my resume and he says, I don't even know why I'm talking to you. I don't talk to technical people, and I don't talk to people that are so young. Not an uppercut, but he wanted to launch a few jabs at me. But luckily that day, I did not bring my small avocados to the meeting. I told him what was going on in my brain. I said, Barry, I came to see a presentation you did on the sales department, and I can't stop thinking about it. I want to be a salesman. The guy says to me, but yeah, you got a technical degree. You have technical experience. You don't have any sales experience. What good are you to me right now with a technical degree? I said, I don't need to be a salesman right now. I'm willing to work on it. If it takes me a year, if it takes me 18 months, if it takes me 2 years. If you could tell me the things I need to do to retool myself so I could bring value to your organization, I am willing to do those things. Big avocado statement right there. He begrudgingly granted me a spot in that year's selection group for the upcoming sales training program. It was amazing how tightly they guarded these sales spots. It was a 6-month selection process before you got into an 18-month training program, during which time you could be ejected at any time. So 36 of us started out in this selection process. And at the beginning of each month, they gave us tasks, assignments, challenges, and we had 3 weeks to get them done. At the end of 3 weeks, we would submit our results and wait a week. And at the end of the month, you'd get notified via memo. We weren't even really on email all that much back then. You would get a paper memo telling you if you were still in the program or not. It was like one of them game shows, like where they vote you off the island. And we started out, we were 36. Then we were 30. Then we were 20. Eventually we got to the end, and I was one of 4 people left in that program. One of 4. They eliminated 32 people from the program. So the message came out. It's down to 4 of you. We might take all of you. We might take some of you. We might take none of you. You have to face the final boss. The final boss was the actual boss, the National VP of Sales. We were each given a 2-hour time slot on his agenda to go into a conference room and convince him and his team that they should hire us into the 18-month training program. I couldn't be happier. I made it. I'm one of the 10% that made it. I'm knocking on the door. I'm almost into sales. If I can convince this guy to let me in the 18-month program, I know I can convince them to give me a sales spot at the end of the 18 months. And the 18-month training program was going to be a lot of work. You keep your job. I would keep my job as a programmer. I wasn't going to just go and train 8 hours a day to become a salesman. I had to keep my job as a programmer. I had to keep producing as was expected of me as a programmer. And the 18-month training stuff was all over and above my regular job duties. I get the memo with my time slot. I'm supposed to show up on October 31st at 2 p.m. to conference room L027. Most people don't even get to talk to these guys. I have 2 hours on their agenda. And I need to convince these guys not only that I'm as good or better than the other 3 people that remained from the selection process, but I got to convince them I'm as good or better than other people that they've led into this training program in the past. Now, I showed you my little book here. This was back in 1995. There wasn't data projectors in every conference room. PowerPoint was only just becoming accepted by people. You never saw any type of color presentations or anything like that. If you wanted to do anything with color, if you wanted to put any kind of media together, you had to go to a printing company and have it made up. I said, let me differentiate myself from these people. I went to a printing company, I put this book together, the presentation about myself, about why they should hire me. And I paid $400. In 1995, I paid $400 to have a dozen copies of this little booklet made up. I saved this one. This is almost 30 years old. I saved this booklet. I was going to hand it out to each of the folks in the room and then go through my spiel of why they should hire me into this program. If memory serves, and I ain't going to run and get a calendar, but if memory serves, October 31st, 1995 was a Monday. It might have been a Tuesday. Whatever it was, I found out the Friday before the meeting that the meeting was canceled and that the 18-month training program had been defunded and also canceled. And the 4 of us that were supposed to come in and present to the VP and all his team were no longer going to be able to do that. And in fact, the sales VP that we were supposed to present to had resigned. My hopes and dreams were crushed. I had just spent 6 months trying to get into this program. I had just spent $400 that I didn't have to make these booklets. But lucky for me, I brought my big avocados to work that day. And I called up the coordinator, this guy who I had met with earlier that put me into the program. His name was Barry. And I said, Barry, I said, you were going to be in that meeting on the 31st at 2 o'clock anyway. He said, yeah. I said, can I keep the 2-hour slot with you and you and me meet alone? He said, well, yeah, but I don't see why we need to meet. The program's been defunct. It's over. I said, well, Barry, you have the time slot open. I have it open. Can we still meet, even if we only use an hour of the time slot, whatever? He says, all right, fine, you could come meet with me. The 3 other people who made it to the final 4, they brought their small avocados to work that day. And they said, well, que sera, sera. I guess the program is defunct. I guess I'll find something else to do with my life. So the day and time finally arrive. Instead of going to the conference room, I go to Barry's office because it's just me and him. And I say, Barry, I want to run something by you. He says, what's that, Tom? I said, well, I understand the program's been canceled. I understand the executive sponsor behind this whole program resigned abruptly. I said, but you told me this was going to be on my own time. I still had to do my own job, right? He said, yeah. I said, so I'm still going to be a programmer from 9 to 5 Monday to Friday. And maybe on my lunch breaks and after work, I'm going to do things that you guys assign me in that 18-month training program, right? He says, yeah. I say, and furthermore, Barry, you told me you're the guy that runs the 18-month training program. He says, yeah. I go, well, Barry, why don't we just pretend like the program didn't get canceled? And why don't we pretend that I got in the program? And you just go ahead and assign me what you would have assigned me anyhow if the project didn't get canceled. And I'll continue being a programmer Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. But in my spare time, I will work on the assignments you give me, just like you would have been given me if the program wasn't canceled and I was in it. And I said, and furthermore, Barry, you told me that part of the program would be that you guys would pay to send me to conferences and trade shows and that I could shadow current salesmen and see what they need to do. I am willing to use my vacation time to go to those shows, and I will pay for my travel on my own dime. In that instant, his whole demeanor changed. Up to this point, his interactions with me were somewhat cold, somewhat non-committal. His body language was challenging. He literally opened his arms up like this and rocked back in his chair. And the most natural, genuine smile formed on this guy's face. And he goes, Tom, what you just said to me is exactly what we're looking for. And he said to me, he said, yes, I'm absolutely willing to do that. And he said, let's start now. So right there, in that moment, I'm in the office of the guy who's in charge of who gets hired as salesman into this company. That's the job I want more than anything in the world. And he has now agreed to set up a custom version of a training program for me that was defunct only a couple days earlier. Now, at the time, I didn't know any better. I was just a pushy 24-year-old or 23-year-old, whatever the heck I was at the time, you know? Aggressive. I just wanted that job. Looking back at it as a seasoned sales executive myself, I could see that's exactly the attribute you want in a salesman. And the guy stayed true to his word. And he became a mentor to me. And he took me through a modified version of what that 18-month program would have been. But more so, what he did for me was make phone calls and get the word out about me. And tell people, hey, I have this young up-and-comer, I'm developing him, I think you ought to give him a chance. Let him ride around with a few of your salesmen, get some feedback from them. And I spent the next 18 months with my mouth shut and my eyes and ears open. And I made the right connections, and I learned about sales. And after 18 months, I landed my first sales job. The day I took that job, my salary was cut in half. And I was given 1 year to prove myself, or I was fired. I could have stayed as a developer. Could have got my 7, 8, 9% pay increase every year. Could have stuck with the sure thing. I could have made the small avocado play. But Sleepy Lizard avocados are enormous. You see this little guy right here? This is 95% of the avocado market in America. This is what's usual. This is what's normal. It's easy to stick with this. But if you desire something better, something bigger, something different, then get yourself some giant Sleepy Lizard avocados. And where do you get your hands on a box of these? guacfarm.com. guacfarm.com. And if you really want people to know how big your avocados are, get a box of these and a Sleepy Lizard Avocado Farm t-shirt. As I said earlier, today is Thanksgiving. I got a big old plate of turkey and mashed potatoes to eat. So while I do that, you go to guacfarm.com and I will see you on the next video.